All right, today we're in Chapter 6, Section 3, which is talking about social goals, prices, and market efficiency. So to start this off, this is more of a conversational chapter because it kind of, a lot of the information here is going to be more about what are your personal opinions about things. So the question I want to start off with is, I want you to think about a product with a price that you believe is either too high or too low. Do you think the government should make a law to change the price of the product to make something more reasonable? I guess the biggest one that I would say is when I think about things that are too high is I think about the cost of prescription drugs. With prescription drugs in a profitable industry, does the government have the power or the responsibility in order to regulate or control the prices so that the citizens can have access to that medical prescriptions? Again, this is going to be on your personal opinion. So, the government has the right and the responsibility to do some of these things. So the government does control prices to a point. The United States is a modified free enterprise economy. And I say this because we say we're free enterprise, we say we're capitalist, we also have aspects of socialism inside or embedded in our culture. The government sometimes interferes in the market in order to achieve socially desirable goals. Setting prices for certain goods and services below or above equilibrium price to make sure that we can maintain the industry. We've had a long history of this happening. You look back to the Great Depression when the prices of crops went so low that we had no competitive farming options out there. People were leaving the profession, people were leaving their family legacies, and what the government said was, wait, we need to step in because everybody needs food, everybody needs farms. So the government kind of comes up with a socialistic system for how we make sure that we protect farmers by providing them subsidies to grow certain crops and subsidies to not grow on certain years to make sure that they're competitive. Again, government has control over that. The first thing that they do is they have price ceilings. Now, price ceilings is the maximum legal price that can be charged for a product. The price is set below the equilibrium level, and shortages will always become permanent. So an example that we give you here is going to be rent control. So if the government steps in and says that we have to charge only a certain amount of money to rent out a product or house, what you're going to see here is that when the equilibrium level, it's going to be set below the equilibrium level. It's called that price ceiling. And what you're going to see is the consequences of the price ceiling is going to be clear. With the price ceiling set, there's going to be more units that are demanded than that are also supplied. So that's going to remain or create a shortage of the things. So normally the result of a shortage would be enough to drive the prices towards equilibrium, so they would raise the prices, but not in the case of price ceilings. Instead, shortages become permanent, and they're going to persist as long as the price ceiling stays below that equilibrium price. Shift could cause a shortage to increase or decrease, but shortages will always be there as long as the price control or that price ceiling remains below that equilibrium price here. Okay, so it will always remain below. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have price floors, and these are the minimum legal prices that a seller can charge. Surpluses become permanent. An example would be sugar prices. I also think about whenever you go to a gas station, look at the prices of tobacco at the lowest the law allows, or when you see in milk in certain grocery stores, it's the lowest that the law will provide. So the example here is going to be sugar. So historically, most prices of all agricultural products have fluctuated because there's different needs at different times of year, different supplies. This is because farmers often face periods of boom or bust, and in years with crops when they're plentiful or extra production that drives the prices down. In years that there's drought or flooding, crop yield could be smaller, and the prices would rise. So the government has a responsibility to stabilize those prices in some way, and how they stabilize it is by creating that minimum price floor. So the sugar industry, for example, is an example of that, and that happened since the 1980s. It was the Farm Act created by the government to set prices on sugar derived from sugar cane. In 2003, the government set up a loan rate that was very small, and the processor of sugar cane could take a loan out from the United States Department of Agriculture to make sure that its sugar was going to be processed and be available to people. So the sugar could be sold on the open market for a higher price than the target price, and then the proceeds of that sale could then be used to repay those different types of government loans or expenditures. or if the market price of sugar fell below the target price, the processor could keep the proceeds from that loan and let the USAID take possession of different sugar. So again, it's about creating those different products to make sure that we secure that industry, to make sure it's there and stable for a long time for the people. So the United States economy, we have social goals that are pretty specific. The first thing you talk about, I'm looking here, is economic freedom. We want everybody to have the chance to do well. We want everybody a chance to make money and supply products. So we give them economic freedom. Of course, the limitations come in the form of taxes and in the form of loans. But for the most part, every person here has the chance to do something by purchasing based off of what they have. We also want economic efficiency, meaning that our money is good and valid, and we're able to use it across the spectrum. Meaning if we work hard and we earn money, we're able to use that money to buy other products that are going to be fairly priced for us in a secure way. We also want economic equity, which means the things that we buy have value. So if we buy a house, it's going to maintain that value so that we could use that equity to buy other things in the future if we need to. We also want economic security, which means that we're going to be able to pay all of our bills. We're going to be able to live a healthy, happy life. Our goal, of course, is full employment, meaning that every person who wants a job or needs a job has access to a job. And not only that, those jobs pay fair wages so that you can live off of those jobs. We also want price stability, meaning that no matter what we go and buy, we should always have an idea. There shouldn't be fluctuations in the market where you have gas for $2 one day and $4 the next. We want to make sure that we're consistent so that we can create a budget to live off of based off of all the other aspects of our life. And finally, we have an economic goal of social growth or economic growth. And what that means is we want our government to continue to prosper, and we want our government to continue to support businesses and industries that are going to grow and create better paying jobs that are going to lead to more circular flow in this whole entire social and economic goal. So when the markets talk, this occurs when prices move up or down significantly in reaction to a related event. Examples could be the gold price is going to rise, stock prices fall, or oil prices rise. You're going to see a correlation between all that so that we know we have a better indicator of what's going to happen. Those of you who are participating in the stock market game are going to understand that too. If something significant happens in one industry, it is going to affect multiple industries across the board depending on who relies on this. So I want you to think about, do you think the price controls are beneficial and should be used? Why or why not? And I want you to actually look at, and I want you to think about specifically my example when we started the lecture, which was prescription drugs. Should there be a government regulation on the prices that are there for prescription drugs? Why and why not? And that's going to be answered in your vocabulary journal.